My Lords, the time allowed for this question has elapsed. My Lords, we now come to the third oral question. Lord Moylan.
My Lords, I beg leave to ask the question standing in my name on the order paper.
I call the Minister, Baroness Veer of Norbiton.
My Lords, the Government has thoroughly investigated whether our forthcoming major investment in connectivity between northern cities should be MagLev rather than rail. We concluded that rail remains the best option for a number of reasons, the most important being that new conventional rail infrastructure can be better integrated into the existing network.
Lord Moylan.
My Lords, MagLev is a great British invention, increasingly deployed in Asia for high-speed travel. And as our world-beating British tunnelling engineers have shown, constructing railways in tunnel can be cheaper than constructing them on the surface, provided you stay in tunnel. But it seems that every proposal for a MagLev that comes to the Department for Transport is rebuffed. Can my noble friend explain why her department is so wedded to a 200-year-old technology that, constructed on the surface, can both cost more and be very, very annoying to local voters?
Well, I'm sure all noble lords will agree that just because something is old, that doesn't mean it's useless. We must indeed, look at all technologies, and that is precisely what we do. And that my noble friend raises an important point, saying about, there are systems around the world using this. There is just one operational high-speed system at the moment, and that's the one in the Shanghai City MagLev. There are many others which are lower speeds, operating at less than 100 miles an hour. There is obviously one in construction in Japan, and that is coming up against some cost pressures.
Lord Davis of Brixton.
Will the Minister give a clear commitment on behalf of the Government to Northern Powerhouse Rail as part of the integrated rail plan?
I can reassure the noble lord that the Government is considering all options as part of the integrated rail plan. Of course, Northern Powerhouse Rail is a very important part of that. Once the IRP is published, Transport for the North will submit a business case consistent with policy and the funding framework.
Kickhope of Harrogate.
The idea of an underground magnetic railway between northern cities from my noble friend certainly has a strong attraction, especially following Elon Musk's proposals for 1,000-mile-an-hour trains in the United States, and especially coming from a former deputy chair of Transport for London. But as Transport for the North has said, our aims in the North should be to improve the frequency, capacity, speed and resilience of our transport system. Can my noble friend go a little bit further in telling us in a realistic way how the Government intends to facilitate those aims in the near future?
The Government is working extremely hard in terms of setting out plans as to how we will improve connectivity in the North. As I mentioned previously, the integrated rail plan will be published soon, which will bring together the benefits not just of High Speed 2, but also Northern Powerhouse Rail and other very, very significant projects around the North. But of course, our investment in traditional rail and upgrading and improving our current lines also continues.
My Lords, what the North East needs is not an underground line, but investment in the East Coast Main Line, which, according to LNER, doesn't have the capacity to accommodate even the service it provided up to 2019. How can it be consistent with government policy to halve the daytime service from Berwick-on-Tweed to London and the major cities, reducing it to a 2-hour gap between trains and a longer journey time? This is the railway going backwards, isn't it?
I will accept that there are capacity constraints on the East Coast Main Line, and that is why we are investing over £1.2 billion to upgrade it. On the 11th of June, LNER launched a consultation on the new proposed timetable for the East Coast Main Line from May 2022. I would encourage all noble lords who have an interest in the East Coast Main Line to respond to that consultation.
Baroness McIntosh of Pickering.
My Lords, if it's concluded that what we really need is a strategic rail link, not just between Leeds and Manchester, but between Middlesbrough and Liverpool and all major towns in between to improve connectivity and boost productivity, how likely is that to happen and how much money will the Government allocate to it?
I can only reassure my noble friend that we are, of course, looking at connectivity across the regions. There are a number of urban centres that need to be connected, and, of course, it's really important that we make sure that towns and villages are connected via local transport into those point-to-point systems.
Bert.
My Lords, I have long been a supporter of improving our strategic rail network, but I now wonder if we face a mid to long-term future where electric vehicles incorporating artificial intelligence within intelligent connected road networks will become the de facto mode of speedy, seamless door-to-door travel. May I ask the Minister, is this a possibility that the Department of Transport is contemplating and investigating?
Well, my Lords, I suspect it will not be an either-or situation in future, as indeed it is not now. But of course, we are actively considering opportunities for automation and AI. We want to see the safe development and deployment of self-driving vehicles. The government has the Centre for Connected and Autonomous Vehicles, and that is looking at developing the regulations, investing in innovation and skills, and of course engaging with the public, because it's important that we take them with us.
Ernest Fox of Buckley.
My Lords, it still strikes me as ironic that while the UK invented MagLev, it is Asia that's made far greater imaginative use of this high-speed technology, and I worry about us being too risk-averse when we refuse to keep it on the table. But can I press the Minister, perhaps less on the exciting sci-fi possibilities of innovative technology solutions, although I find them exciting? We need plans. What are the concrete plans to bring about high-speed connectivity between northern cities? Because it is crucial for levelling up. And can she assure us urgency and speed will be deployed rather than emulating HS2, which has to be the slowest high-speed project in the world, and the cost challenges of maglevs in Japan, surely not worse than HS2 here?
Well, I too am extremely excited by technology, but it is the case, and the noble lady said that there's been sort of widespread take-up across Asia of MagLev technology, and that's not the case. It is the case that we have the system, the high-speed system up and running in Shanghai at the moment, but China has actually now decided to invest in conventional rail rather than rolling out a large number of high-speed MagLev systems. But it is the case, as I've mentioned many times previously, that the government is considering connectivity across the north, and that will be set out in the integrated rail plan.
Could the noble lady, the Minister, confirm from her earlier answers that the government doesn't know when the Northern Powerhouse Rail project, first promised by the then Chancellor of the Exchequer in 2014, will be approved, doesn't know when its route plan will be made clear, and doesn't know when the promised infrastructure work on the Northern Powerhouse Rail project will actually start? And assuming that is the case, which is what I think the noble lady, the Minister, has been telling us, can she at least assure us that work on the construction of Northern Powerhouse Rail will take priority over the start of work on the Prime Minister's latest project, namely the construction of a new royal yacht?
I think that's rather an extreme assessment of what I've been saying so far. What I would reiterate is that the integrated rail plan must come first. Without an integrated rail plan, it is pointless having a plan for Northern Powerhouse Rail, because, of course, the whole point is they all have to be integrated. So, as I said previously, we will be working with Transport for the North. They will submit the business case for Northern Powerhouse Rail, and, of course, once we have received it, we will be able to set out how that project will go forwards.
Baroness Randerson.
Does the noble lady, the Minister, acknowledge that continued speculation about the future of Northern Powerhouse Rail, at the same time as the issuing of new timetables by East Coast Main Line, which actually reduce rail links for the northern cities, does she acknowledge that that simply serves to undermine confidence in government promises to level up, and therefore to reduce the likelihood of private sector investment in northern cities?
The absolute priority for this government is to get it right. And so endless amounts of pressure as when's it going to be published? probably aren't particularly helpful, and they do lead to an awful lot of speculation. So, as I've said previously, we are taking due consideration of what stakeholders are saying. We are working very, very hard to come up with a very robust and deliverable plan. That's exactly what this government's going to do.
Lord Berkeley.
My Lords, the Minister is absolutely right about the Shanghai MagLev, which I've been on. It's very fast, it's very noisy, but the technology and therefore the costs are very, very tight because the track has to be kept within plus or minus half a millimetre in both directions, vertical and horizontally. So she's absolutely right to reject it, and I hope that government will stick to those policies.
And now we're all very jealous. I too would love to go on that particular MagLev. And the Noble Lord does make a very important point. It's not just about the cost of the infrastructure, it's also about the cost of operation, because they do have very high electricity consumption, and therefore they can be more costly to operate. I know that the Japanese system is going to be using superconducting electromagnetics, which should be cheaper, but even so, you know, although MagLev does have some great applications, it is not applicable everywhere.
My Lords, the time allowed for this question has elapsed.